Okay, so I'm not sure if you saw on Instagram, Facebook last week, but I was sharing a story that happened to me about a week ago when I was at Target, of all places. It should be the most joyous place of all. And I caught myself in this moment thinking and having feelings that I know really aren't me. And I wanted to share with you on today's episode what that story was, what the thoughts and the feelings I was having around it, and how I worked myself through that problem to come to a solution of, hey, how do I really want to show up in this world? How do I really want to think? Am I in control of my thoughts and my emotions, or is somebody else in control of those? So let's get to today's episode. Hey, and if you're new to the channel, I just wanted to say welcome to the Angie Method. This is my place where I can share a little bit about my life and how I use health and fitness as a vehicle to have an upward spiral mentally and emotionally, and how I help other women do the same. So if we can physically have a transformation and we can feel amazing in our body, we can use more of our mental bandwidth to have growth and expansion and to live from this place of desire where we go after what we want. And so that's what we're doing right here on the Angie Method channel, and I am so glad you are here. Okay, so if you didn't see my reel, here I am at Target the day after Black Friday. I wanted to go on Black Friday, and Paul was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. I was like, okay, no problem, we'll go on Saturday. And so I was like, you keep the boys busy over in the toy aisle, let them write their little list to Santa, and I'm gonna go and plan for stocking stuffers. And so here I am over in the Target aisle, and I'm picking out stuff for the boys' stockings. I'm picking out things for my dad, who will be traveling across the country from St. Louis to Texas to spend the holiday with us, picking out things for Paul. And as I was doing so, and I was excited to go to Target that day, because who's not excited to go to Target? I started to have these thoughts. And here's what I started to think. I was like, does anyone actually know how much time it takes me to think about the stockings, to think about making, getting all the presents bought, to get them all wrapped? Like, is anybody gonna acknowledge that I did this? Is anyone gonna fill my stocking on Christmas morning? And I started to feel resentment towards Paul. I was like, does he know that I put all this effort in? And then it led me to having a pity party and feeling sorry for myself. And the real problem that I was experiencing is that I let those type of thoughts and feelings ruin the moment for me. I let them rob me of joy in being present in that moment, because I actually love doing those things for the holidays. I loved how my mom, when we were growing up, she had 2 stockings filled for us. One that would be on our door and another one that was on the mantle. And whatever wrapping paper was in the one on your bedroom door, you knew that was the wrapping paper that your presents were wrapped under the tree. I found it to be the most magical, special thing, and I do the exact same things for the boys and for Paul. And rather than enjoying that moment, I was having a pity party. And so I sat there, and what I realized was that this way of thinking, this scorekeeping that I was doing, this resentment that I was having, like, I gave away my power to think in a way that's in alignment with who I know I actually am. And like the real problem, I decided to be a victim in that situation, right? Like, why would I do that, right? I have the capacity to be able to go and to do these special things for my family. I have the resources to do it. I have a support system like my husband, who can go and distract the boys and be like, all right, get over there, go have fun, pick out all the things you want. And while he is there and he is helping out and he is present, I'm scorekeeping. I became a victim in my own situation. And I realized that every moment, every decision, right? I get to choose what I want. I get to choose how I spend the time in that moment. I get to choose and I get to perceive life in a way that actually will give more meaning to it rather than taking away the joys of life. And so what I wanted to do was share the 3 ways, like the three thought processes I had that I could take this feeling of a pity party or resentment or whatever it was that I was feeling to get right back to choosing to be present in that moment and to choose to find gratitude in that moment and to find joy in that moment. So if you have ever felt stressed in a choice, if you have ever felt that mental load that we carry as women, if you feel like I'm doing it all and is anyone recognizing, like, I get it, I've been there, but we also have the power in that choice and in that moment to decide how we want to spend it. Because really the only person it ends up impacting negatively when we go into that victim mentality is ourselves. So let me give you my 3 ways that you can reframe quickly to get right back into a positive, like joyful emotional state. Okay, so number 1, like I mentioned, I was scorekeeping, right? I started to have resentment towards my spouse. And so what I did was I took a step back, like literally in that moment, in that aisle, and I was like, whoa, like look at everything he does do for our family. Look at everything he does for our business, for our life, right? Like I might carry more of the perceived mental load of being the mother and knowing like what foods the boys like right now, when the snacks need to be replenished in the pantry, like getting the stuff to daycare, signing all the forms or whatever it is. But I'm like, I shouldn't be scorekeeping because Paul does so much for this family, right? Like he handles all of our finances. He handles all of the things that I don't even know how to do in our business, like taxes and whatnot. Like he carries a lot of load of his own, and never does he feel resentment towards me for me not handling those things. And so I first was like, okay, like look at what he does do for our family. And this perceived, like, I don't know, whatever it was I was feeling against him, I was like, I'm perceiving it like that, right? And rather, I should have looked at it as, Angie, do you enjoy making the holiday special for people? Do you enjoy filling those stockings? Do you feel like this is time and effort not well spent? And the truth of it is, I do love doing those things. That time and effort I spend on it, I look forward to doing it. And so I quickly was able to look at everything that we each do as individuals and what we do as a couple. And I was able to bring myself back together to be like, hey, this is what you're choosing and what you want to do. And it doesn't feel like effort and it doesn't feel like an inconvenience because it's something that I really enjoy doing. Number 2, I feel like this is a big one. And I don't feel like this is going to be a surprise to anyone, but how am I communicating my needs and what I need supported in, or where is the lack of communication happening? So if I really am struggling with carrying some type of task that I have to do or mental load or whatever it is, and I'm starting to feel a little bit angry or I'm starting to feel resentment, like, am I communicating that in a way that is neutral, right? Where I'm not coming in on the attack mode or I'm not being on the defense like, hey, Paul, do you think that we could like go out for coffee and we could just chat about a couple things that are going on in the household that I would love to get your feedback on? That's very neutral, right? So having that feeling that I had where does anybody notice? Does anybody acknowledge? Like, that wasn't the truth, right? Like I literally was making that up in my head. That was a story I was telling myself because I was looking for comfort in some way. Rather, I could have just communicated with Paul and be like, hey, Paul, like, you know I love doing this stuff, but you think that when it's time to wrap the presents, do you think you could just help me wrap the stocking stuffers? He would have loved doing that. In fact, I'm already asked him, and we're going to make a night of it, and we're going to have champagne. But you have to see when you have these feelings, like, are you communicating your needs? Are you doing things that you actually want to do? If not, can you delegate them to somewhere else? And can you just sit down and go in a neutral space and just talk about those supports that you need in a way that's going to serve you and your significant other or whoever else it is that's in your support system? Now, number 3, it has everything to do with that victim mentality, because I have seen that victim mentality from people that I love in my life a lot. And I remember I used to say to Paul, I'm like, why do they act like the victim all the time? Like, where is this coming from? Like, how do they actually think that that situation made them the victim? And there I was acting like the victim. And so as soon as I realized I had that thought in my head, I was like, whoa, it is full on 100% my responsibility. And I need to take ownership for my thoughts and my decision in every single moment. Nobody is in my head causing those feelings. Nobody is causing my thoughts. Like, I am choosing to have those. And we coach this in our women's group, like literally day in and day out, that every single thing we do, we have to own it and we have to be personally responsible for it, because things will happen in our life that are out of our control. Some things will be in our control. But what we have to remember is that anything that's happening in our environment or is happening to us, like if we choose to own it and we choose to make decisions that are going to best serve us, that's when you start to live that life of peace and you don't miss being present in the moment and experiencing all the joy that life literally brings us. And so those are my top 3 reframes. Like, really take a step back and ask yourself, like, well, why am I feeling this way, right? Like, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this resentment, right? And then look at you and the parties involved and everything that you each do to make life meaningful. And then communicate. Are you communicating or lack of communication? And then third one, just be personally responsible. Like, the only person that was responsible for that victim mentality and choosing to feel stress in that moment was me. And so that's my little story. Yes, this happens to me a lot, but I can recognize when I'm having those feelings that that's not how I want to be and it's not how I want to show up, and I can quickly use these 3 tips to come out of it. All right, so that's what I got for today's episode. Just a little bit of Angie getting vulnerable and having that little thing happened to me at Target. And, that was like small scale. And I know that these types of feelings come and go on a way bigger scale. And if you are a mom and you're watching this, or you're a busy working mom and you sometimes feel like, hey, I don't know if anybody recognizes this mental load or this invisible load that I carry, communicate it, right? Or ask for support, because we get to choose and live and be in every moment. And if we're letting that mental load interfere with us living a life of joy and happiness, like, it is our responsibility to fix it. All right, that's all I got. Chat soon.